recently I started to share with my grandchildren and my children again the stories that are my testimony.
Mm.
We used to go skiing with a group of Christians, usually about 30 or 40 of us. We sometimes hired a Scripture Union chalet in Chateau d'Ay in Switzerland. And we just each year we'd meet up about October time and we would book for just after Christmas to go skiing. Loved it. We'd gone from scratch, learning and so on. So anyway, it turns out that I was praying in the October time and I just felt God say, don't go skiing this year. And the arrangement I had in my business was that if God, if I was, sorry, God, if I was at work, staff needed to be at work. So we tried to coordinate. Oh, there's no point me being at work and no staff to support me. No point them being there at work when I'm away either.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. And the staff themselves had started skiing with their families. And I thought, well, if God's saying I want you to work over Christmas time, I'm going to be popular as nothing, and if I say it's God, that's even going to be more wacky,
Yeah.
uh, you know. Uh, so anyway, it turns out that I had the courage of my convictions, and I said to the group, "We're not going." And I don't know why, I just feel God said, "Don't." And so anyway, as a result, I decided to buy a table tennis table, which we fitted in this room that I'm in here.
Mm.
And anyway, Jonathan, my middle one's very athletic and did lots of activities. And we were playing table tennis, and I'm not good. And he said, "Daddy, I'm dizzy." And I said, "Oh, right, okay." So I thought it was a bit odd because he's not normally at all like that. And then we made a big bed up in the upstairs. I made a huge bed so that something I remembered from my grandpa Seth and Granny, that's Smith's son, was that they used to have morning tea. And as a kid, I can remember getting into their nice, warm, comfy bed as a grandkid. Anyway, our children used to come into bed with us for morning tea each morning.
Mhm.
And on Boxing Day, John B got into bed and pulled up his. In fact, no, which day was it? No, the day after Boxing Day, because on Boxing Day he felt dizzy. And he said, "Daddy, look at the ink on my legs." And so I said, "Look." And there's a large bruise going from just below his knee right the way down to his ankle,
Wow.
beginning with a straight line at the top. And I thought, well, you bashed yourself. What have you done? No, no, haven't. And then I eventually found that he had tripped over a bit of soft duck wire that we have. We had ducks, and he wouldn't do anything to your leg at all. So I
Mm.
said, take your pajamas off and take your top off as well. And he was covered in bruises and what we call
Mm.
petechiae, and I knew that wasn't good because
Yeah.
sudden bruising in a child can be an indication of acute leukemia.
Yeah.
And anyway, I thought, well, let's get you down to the doctors. So we took him down to the doctors, and he's passing blood in the urine. And why did the doctor look at you like that, Daddy? I said, well, it's not. You're not right. I think we'll pop you into hospital, have a check. Oh, I don't want to go to hospital. I said, well, if a car's not working properly, you take it to the garage. And hospital's like a human garage. It's the way you get sorted, and so on. I hadn't shared with anybody else about this. My knowledge of the acute leukemia, and he could be dead in 3 days.
Mm.
You know. So anyway, we went down the pool hospital and came to us after about an hour having the blood tests. They said, "Well, there's good news and bad news." I said, "Well, what's the good news?" They said, "Well, it's not acute leukemia." I thought, "What is it? I should know that." And there was something called, you'll know, Ali, but idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. We call it
Mm.
ITP for short.
Yeah.
And we were told to learn it for finals and then forget it because it's not going to come your way anyway. So, but if you took a tooth out on somebody who had that, they could bleed badly.
Mm.
And anyway, the pediatrician, Jeremy Cogswell, who I also knew as a patient, he came to the ward in the children's ward in Poole Hospital and said, "Good job you don't go skiing." And I hadn't thought about it. Yeah, I said, "Why'd you say that?" He said, "Well, people go skiing at this time of the year." I thought, "Yes, okay." And he said, "If you've been at altitude, the difference in pressure could have caused intracranial hemorrhage, and the most common cause of real complications is intracranial hemorrhage for ITP."
Wow.
And he said, if also he's a boisterous guy and he bashed himself down the hills, he might have bled internally and nobody would know what's going on.
Wow.
And his limit, I think he was supposed to be having 100 and what's it now? it was, is it 150? I forget now. Yeah, 150. His blood count should be 150. Was it erythrocyte? Is it not
Platelets.
erythrocytes? It's going, which one? Platelets. That's
Platelets.
right. Yeah, and he was down to 5,000
Wow.
compared to 150 or so, which is an academic thing because, as you know, they put a grid and just estimate from that grid how many probably the average is.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, basically, we realized then that if we'd been skiing, we'd have lost him.
Wow. Wow.
You know, so listening to God, and also, therefore, I can now share that story with them, and you never know what would have happened had I disobeyed.
Mm.
You just don't know.
Mm.
And so I think, is there anything you can do to the generation coming up? Yeah, I think, as they did in the biblical Old Testament times, especially, shared the stories that what God had done. And we are, I think, in our generation, distinctly bad at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just sharing the Old Testament; it's sharing the Now Testament ones.